It actually started on time.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We're live. Woohoo.
Excellent. Look how easy that was. Just
I
the third
know.
time.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Third time. What, third or fourth time's the charm? But yeah, welcome everybody for Freefly Chats with JRuss. Today we're going to be talking about Breakoff. So any questions you have about Breakoff, discussing Breakoff, how important, and it's one of the most important parts of the jump. So really wanted to cover kind of aspects of that today. And yeah, welcome. It should be about 30 minutes, or we'll spend 20 minutes talking maybe, and then 10 minutes for questions. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box down there. So, and I will
Cool.
read them off.
Cool. Well, as usual, I did not make a detailed outline of what I want to talk about. But there are some things that jump immediately to mind about Breakoff. One of them is just, I think the general concept of the skydive, our skydives are pretty safe when all of us are going the same speed and the same direction. And so getting to the skydive and leaving the skydive generally present the most issues or the most possibilities for impacts or free fall collisions, where our speed and our direction are not necessarily the same. And at getting to the skydive, like exiting from the plane, we intend to be going the same direction and we intend to be going the same speed, but this doesn't always work like that. But at Breakoff, by design, we are going to change speed, and we're also going to change direction. And it's going to be intentionally different than the rest of the people that are on the skydive, because we need clean air for deployment. So just to put in the front of everybody's mind that as we talk about this, we are at that moment intentionally creating a situation that has inherent risks. So just to keep in mind the importance of being kind of good at Breakoff. And one of the areas that I feel like people don't spend enough time on in their skydiving career, there's several, I guess, but two jump to mind immediately. And one of them is Breakoff, and the other is your canopy flight. And both of those skill sets represent ways that you're going to save your own life after the skydive, and then you're going to return yourself safely to the earth. And definitely feels like people spend a lot of time on their free fall skills. They go to the tunnel, they get coaching, and those things make a lot of sense. And I feel like canopy courses are overlooked, and then tracking jumps are overlooked. And so for a lot of people, I think that you should start very early in your career going on tracking jumps and practicing that skill that's going to get you away from other skydivers every single time you jump, because most of us don't want to spend our careers doing solos. We want to jump with our friends, and we need to safely depart from our friends when the time arises. So this summer, I've spent more time than I planned certifying people who want to do movement jumps at Skydive Chicago. That's angles and tracking, and kind of a hour and a half or 2 hour process where they fill out paperwork and a bunch of questions that Anthony and I came up with about just kind of thought-provoking things. What is a movement group, and blah blah blah. But one of the questions is, who is it okay to take on a tracking jump? What's the minimum number of jumps someone needs to go tracking with one of our organizers? And I've almost never gotten the answer that I think is right. People are trying to quote me the exact thing out of the USPA sim, or I don't know, something that's in their brain about this is the minimum number of jumps. And so hopefully everybody's thinking about that right now, the 12 people that are listening to me. But I think that it is an A license, that you learn tracking, or you try to get education on tracking when you're in your AFF jumps or your AFP or whatever program you go through. And that happens pretty early. I want to say jump 4 or 5, maybe, like right in my AFF program is right after they let me go. They wanted me to try and do forward movement. I don't know if that's during 3, maybe. I think level 3, I just chilled. I didn't do anything. I just tried to come straight down. But then level 4, I'm doing turns in both directions and a little bit of forward movement. I think it was, it's a minute ago. But anyway, just, if somebody's got an A license, they need to learn how to track. And if you've got 1,000 jumps, in my opinion, you probably also need to learn to track. And so especially, this is a really big point in my opinion, when you're a belly flyer and you've got booties on the whole time, and a lot of belly flyers come to me and say, man, I really want to try and free fly. That's awesome. And we probably should start with a tracking jump and take that booty suit off and let's go slick or whatever you want to call it. But your legs don't have the same power, and you got to try and find a way to stay stable and to generate power. And just so the belly flyers out there aren't offended, I don't normally wear a belly suit. It's been long, multiple thousands of jumps since I've consistently worn a belly suit. And the last time that I wore one, I almost made myself unstable as I tracked away because there was so much power in the booties, and I laughed my ass off. I was glad Doug Barron didn't get to see me because I almost rolled on my back. So anyway, if we go back, all that sort of surrounding stuff, and go back to just Breakoff. So normally we want to set Breakoff a minimum, I believe USPA quote is 1,500 feet above whatever the highest planned deployment altitude is. So for my jumps, a majority of my jumps, that means we were breaking off at 5, and I plan to at least have a pin out a little around 3.5, something like that. So I'd say if you're unsure about the skill set in the group, or the group gets larger, or the dive gets more complex, you can start thinking about setting that Breakoff a little bit higher, maybe 2,000 feet or even 2,500 feet higher than the planned deployment altitude. And for instance, like for the 200 wave that's coming up, the first Breakoff wave is 7.5, and they track until 3.5. So quite a bit of time to get away. That's, I want to say 100 people. There's a big wave that's leaving at that time, 80 people, something like that. So because of the group size, because of the speed, because of the difficulty, we're getting a really early start. So generally speaking, Breakoff involves a turn 180 degrees from whatever the center point of that skydive is. That turn should be pretty much in place, and then slowly extending your body with more surface area towards your feet and less towards your head to give you a head low angle to the wind, and that angle generates drive, and you move away from the center. There's different disciplines for that. What I just described is generally on your belly, that you turn around 180 from the center, look at the space in front of you, slowly extend your arms and legs towards your feet, bring them into your center line, and that will give you a head low aspect, and you'll move away. On your back, you would do a similar thing. If you were back flying the whole time, sort of breaks at your hips, the 90-degree break at your hips, perhaps a 90-degree break at your knee, and your arms kind of out here somewhere. That you would do a very similar thing to belly flying, that you would turn 180 from the imagined center point and then slowly start to extend your body with hands and feet stretching toward your feet, end of your body, hips up. And at some point, you're going to need to do a barrel roll back to your belly so that you can deploy belly to earth. If you're in a sit, a head up orientation, typically I have people relax their arms, and just bringing your arms in a little bit or relaxing them down will drop you onto your back. And then you start the process from your back that I just described. And that gives you a chance to check the airspace above you, which is part of that process, is that as our speed changes relatively radically, we drop on our back, we want to make sure that we check the space above for someone that's still vertically oriented above us before we think about going to our belly, where we're blind to what's above us, and those speed differentials can be dangerous, shocking. So when you bring your arms in and drop onto your back, that gives you a chance to look above. You stretch out on your back, start away from the center point, and then at some point again, you're going to roll over to your belly. As you get better at barrel rolls, or maybe free flying generally, but barrel rolls for sure, you're going to want to think about building in enough time into your breakoff that you can again roll on your back and check the space above you just prior to deployment. And hopefully, if that's not a skill that is in your repertoire right now, you see that you need to practice that quite a bit before you're going to intentionally put yourself on your back just before you are about to deploy your parachute. And you don't want to just kind of huck that one. You want to be good at barrel rolls. You want to be good at backtracking, and you want to be pretty good at belly tracking before you try and implement that right at the bottom end. So hopefully I've made that clear enough. And when you're head down, typically the discipline for Breakoff is that you're looking at the group that's in front of you. You hear your ditter go off. You're going to turn 180 in place, on level, not dropping down. And then it's the same thing. That 180 gives you a chance to clear the space that was previously behind you, that is now right in front of you, before you start to go there. You lean your head forward of your hips to develop an angle and start to drive out away from the center. And at this point, the only thing that's happening relative to the group that you were with is that you're going slower. And I really need to start out, if you haven't done this process, you really need to start you thinking that you're not diving down when you do this. It's not turning around 180 and collapsing your body. It's still flying head down. And the only thing that happens once your breakoff starts is that you're going to go slower relative to the group that you were just with. It's not diving down. So once you created that angle and you start driving out, you're going to end up on your back. You're going to have quite a bit more power than you had when you were just back flying or even just sit flying, because you're converting all of that speed that you had into an angle that drives with a ton of power. So then you're gonna angle out, you're on your back, you're checking the airspace above, rolling over to your belly and continuing on your belly track, checking the airspace below. And then hopefully, if you've got this skill set, you're back on your back one more time to a check again above, back on your belly, wave and pull. That's hopefully a reasonable overview of the mechanics of Breakoff from different body positions. So how can you practice this stuff? Well, some of it, if you're reasonably competent head down flyer, you should be practicing this now, today. If your normal Breakoff procedure is I've got people in front of me and I hear my ditter and I pull my head back to again create an angle, but now I'm blind to where I'm going. If that's your normal Breakoff procedure, that needs to change to what I just said. The only time that I use that kind of a procedure is when I'm with my team. I am absolutely confident that Johnny is below us. Camera flyer is not behind me. I'm absolutely confident that I can see the three people that I'm jumping with. And I know that I can convert that power to a belly track safely. And I can't stress that enough. That is, I have the utmost confidence in my teammates. They're not going to be somewhere that I don't expect. And if, for instance, that we're doing a block, we're turning a block, say 9, arbitrarily, but 9 works because Sam could potentially be behind me when the ditter goes off. And then I don't have absolute confidence of where everybody is. I am immediately back to the Breakoff procedure that I talked about, either for head down or head up, where I'm dropping onto my back. If I'm head up, I'm checking. I don't know where Sam is. I'm checking out where he is. Or if I'm head down, I'm turning around 180, making sure it's clear, and then angling out. And so it takes a little bit more time to do that. I lose a little bit of my Breakoff altitude that's available to me. But if I don't have absolute confidence of where everyone is, I need that procedure so they don't kill us both. It's good to have an idea in your mind about when to apply which procedure. And I again, just going back, bringing your head back and going through your belly is only in a really slim, narrow set of circumstances where that's okay. All the other times when you're head down, you're going to be turning 180, checking your space and going out.
I have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, what are some considerations for, or like situations for like tracking up and down jump run? So usually for like if it's a, larger group or something like that where someone is going to be tracking up or down jump run, like.
Cool. So I got this question a little while ago, a couple Summerfests ago, because we have quite a few people during Summerfest who are interested in movement groups. Movement groups are very popular. And I think it's great that they are, because a movement group by definition is teaching you the difficult parts that I just talked about, getting to the skydive and leaving the skydive. And if you can get into movement camps, those leaders are going to be giving you the skill sets that you need to be safe on your skydives. And I think, I honestly, I don't understand why people do them over and over again for a week of just an angle camp, because it would make me bored. But I do get it, that it's a great thing. And if people are better at it, I like the records right now are way safer because so many people are angle flying and so many people are much better about getting away from the other people. So, however, the discussion came up among the organizers for Summerfest, might have been last year, that the leadership courses for Fly for Life, a group that I have a ton of respect for. Luis and I have been friends for almost the entire career for me, 18 or 19 years. And Sharon has gotten to be a very good friend, and they're the two people that I think are teaching leadership. And I really respect those guys. But I disagree with the idea that there should be a time for a movement group that is planned to go up line of flight. And I had a long talk with Sharon about this. I've never talked to Luis about it to my knowledge, but I might have talked her into my way of thinking. I don't know. That would be a hell of a statement, Sharon. But the way that I normally try and relate that, and I'm definitely, the people that are trying to be leaders here at Skydive Chicago, I'm saying there's no time that we're going to go up line of flight.
Yeah, and
number one. Sorry, go ahead.
And honestly, like, I'm not asking about movement groups. I'm not asking about tracking groups. I'm asking, like, if there's a 6-way or an 8-way belly, like RW jump.
Sorry.
If everybody's going 180 degrees away from the center, like, someone's going to be going up line of flight, right? Yeah. Like, so what are considerations for people in the plane that, like, they should do to make sure that they don't run into, like, that situation?
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. So at Skydive Chicago, there's a little display at the back of the plane that tells you how far you need to be, how many seconds for 1,000 feet of vertical separation. And at the bottom of it, it says 1.5 times that number when the group is 6 or more. And I think once you get to about 6 and it starts getting bigger than that, maybe double that time. And that's sort of a subjective interpretation, I guess, but there's almost no way in a bigger group that somebody's not going kind of generally line of flight. Hopefully everybody has the awareness in that group of you're a 6-way, that's a pretty big group, of knowing what jump run was. Oh shit. And then, sorry, I gotta close something here that's demanding my attention. Hopefully everybody knows what jump run is. And so when breakoff happens, if your radial happens to be up jump run or even down, that you can veer off a little bit. You might get a little bit closer to your neighbor, but that's sort of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I know where that guy is, and I can mitigate the danger with that guy, but I don't necessarily know where those people are in free fall, especially belly flying. Like, I can't see that group, and now somebody potentially in the smaller group could be coming towards me, and now we're having kind of an issue. But that, I guess that's it. If you watched our team's jump, it's only a 4-way. But 100% of the jumps, there's nobody going up line of flight. And as soon as we break off, I would rather hold hands with Steph on my breakoff and just pitch 1,000 feet below her than go up line of flight. And we'll do that. Like, it just doesn't happen. None of us 4 go that way. And in fact, there's a woman that's chasing us right now just to be a better camera flyer, and she tracked up line of flight once. And I said, hey, Nicole, don't do that again. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll pull low, but you're not going up line of flight. So that should be your mindset. I'm not going up line of flight. And then when the group size gets bigger and it's more difficult to maintain that, it should be angled slightly away from line of flight and definitely trying to look and see where that group is. And once your parachute is open, you have got to turn off line of flight. You just created a kind of a dangerous situation, not your fault really, so per se, but you need to mitigate dangers to yourself as much as you can, as early as you can.
Yeah, and the group, behind, making sure they're giving plenty of time.
Yeah.
So that way, and not going down line of flight.
I mean, 1,000 feet of horizontal separation can easily be negated if both people track up or down line of flight. You guys are going to meet each other, and then if your canopy's open and fly straight, man, you're close together.
Okay, so another question: if you are tracking, so breaking off away from other people, like what if you end up under someone or you end up over someone? Like, how do you react in that situation?
Well, they're on your skydive. That's the question.
Yeah, they're on your skydive. Yeah, you just somehow accidentally took the same radial, or someone ended up at different levels, or Yeah,
we cover this a lot in beginner intro to tracking during Summerfest, but at least in my group. But there's a couple things that you can do. If you realize it early enough, the top person was probably going to be the one that realizes it. You can start to take a different radial. And if you think about the spokes of a bicycle wheel, you might be real close together at the center, at the hub. But then as you get to the outside, you've created quite a bit of horizontal distance, even with a fairly small change. Like anything else, I mean, you've already started to track. You've already got power in that direction. You're not going to make a hard corner and do a 90 away from that person, because then there's somebody that could be on the other side of you. So, looking at that person, you want to look over your outside shoulder relative to that person and start changing your angle of attack or radial to get you into a direction. If you realize that late in the skydive, or you guys for some reason have converging radials, if you're the top person, it's less likely that person is going to see you underneath, unless they're good at rolling over on their back. You wouldn't want to count on that. So what can you do? As the high person, you can definitely either roll on your back and check the space above you, or look over your shoulder, and even though you might be 500 or 1,000 feet high, wave and pull, and get out of that situation safely before you guys get to the same altitude. If you're the low person, like I do on most jumps that aren't with my team, I will roll over my back and just check the sky above me at some point during my breakoff. And if I see somebody up there and I think they're looking at me, I can communicate with them. And I don't love doing it, but this is a signal that most people understand. However, if I do that, I hope it is clear that I am taking some amount of responsibility for that skydiver in this moment. I'm not just there to save myself, but I need to look above that skydiver and make sure that there's not three of us stacked up. I need to physically check their airspace before I say, hey, go dive. So a little bit of there's possibilities. At some point, hopefully everyone understands that even if you see somebody above you, you turn your shoulders, they're still coming at you. At some point you need fabric out, and whatever your minimum altitude for that decision is, you need to respect that. And then sadly, you're kind of hoping for the randomness of the universe that your canopies don't entangle, you don't have a free fall to canopy collision, but you've got to get fabric out at some point. You can't just tell that person to pull all the way through, say, your decision altitude. You don't want to burn that low. You want to have time for the problems that might happen on that skydive, because if there was a skydive that you're going to have line twist, that's probably it.
Yeah. Do a really, really big wave.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you do end up in a situation, you guys are close to each other, so you have some separation, but you end up opening closer to someone than you thought. Like, what are some strategies for, handling that? If you're like, oh, there's someone opening up right next to me.
Well, again, to circle back to canopy courses that I feel like are sometimes neglected, and people should be a little more diligent about learning skills that return them safely to the earth. During deployment, I think with most experienced skydivers, your hands are up to the risers, and then as the risers start to separate, you transition to the rears. If that's not your habit, it absolutely should be, because even with large canopies, you have control much more limited, but an amount of control during deployment that you can change the heading of your canopy if you're prepared. And that prepared means your hands are up on the rears. I mean, the fronts could conceivably accomplish the same thing, but that's not what I want to be doing. I want to be on the rears during deployment so that if I have an issue, I am immediately able to change my line, even if it's not fully open. On smaller canopies, definitely people should be thinking about flying their whole pattern with harness inputs instead of toggles, just to get accustomed to constantly be teaching yourself what controls are available to you before you have what you would probably consider full control of your canopy, where your sliders dealt with and you've got your hands in the toggles and your brakes are popped. Long before that, you've got adequate control of your canopy to save your life.
All right, 2 questions from some viewers. Tyler, I think you covered this a little bit, but maybe just a brief overview. He asked best practices for head-up break-off.
Well, yeah, I mean, the words that I said are going to be the same. Dropping onto your back to check the space above before you roll over to your belly. And I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to know what examples to give. But I had a friend for about 20 years who was sadly a victim of a head down to belly collision, and he was coaching a guy that went low. And that guy, being relatively inexperienced, went on his belly to recover the level with his coach. His coach had gone to a sit to look for him, found him, flipped back on his head to chase him, and then subsequently the guy went on his belly and they collided. And Chris lost the use of his legs, and he had limited use of his arms for the 21 years that he made it after that impact. And he was quite fond of sharing that video. He wanted everyone to understand that that danger is very real and with some serious consequences. And if you need to convince yourself of that, pick a highway close to your area and close your eyes and cross the highway. You would never do that. The speed differential is insane. We're falling in a sit at 140 or 150 miles an hour, and to suddenly change to 120 or 110, depending on your size, that 40 or 50 mile an hour difference is insane. You need to make sure that your airspace is clear above you before you make that change. And that's for your own safety and for the safety of everyone around you. So dropping on your back. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of say, and part of going to your back is not only clearing your airspace above you, but you're able to keep up that fall rate. You're able to keep up the faster fall rate on your back compared to if you would be on your belly. So.
Yeah, that speed differential is very mild. Yeah. Maybe 10 miles an hour. Yeah. When you drop onto your back fly is actually still really fast. The rig diverts the wind around you and you keep up speed. It's not until you stretch out and start tracking that you really slow down.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Ray is asking, how do you recommend break off in a head up movement jump? So more advanced stuff, but how do you break off in a head up movement jump?
Generally, I think that the break off for movement jumps is encapsulated for me in the word progressive, that it starts out slow and then builds speed over time. Now, if you're talking about the specific mechanical things of should I stay head up, or should I transition to my head or to my back? That's going to be dictated by your leader. And it depends on the skill set of the group. But generally speaking, there's some fundamentals of breaking off from movement groups. That progressive to me means that when the break off happens, the leader waves or your jitter goes off, that instead of looking at the leader, you are now looking over your outside shoulder to make sure that the space you intend to move in is clear. You gently turn to that radial, whatever you think that is, and now you're going to start to slowly apply power so that it's understandable to people that are around you that I intend to break off. I've turned my shoulders relative to the leader, and now I'm starting to move and starting to flatten out. And by the time I get to the end of my break off, I'm going as flat, as fast as I possibly can. But that built up slowly as you can do it in the 7 seconds or so that you have to get that down. But part of the leadership course here is showing a video of someone who didn't do that. His break off was instantaneous. He didn't look where he was going. And and he crossed the center line of the leader, which is another no-no. But he impacted another skydiver that hadn't heard their jitter. And especially as you talk about these more advanced angle jumps, when you transition, if there's a transition built into your skydive where you started head up, you went head down, or vice versa, it is very likely that everybody in the group now has a different setting for their audible. And I'm the primary sit on our team. That means I transition all the time. My jitter almost never goes off when everybody else is ready to go, especially Steph, because she's the primary head down. Hers hasn't changed. It hasn't passed through a burble that offset that really simple barometric device that you have in your ear. And so once it's changed, once it's passed through a burble, it's not right anymore. It's off by hundreds of feet. So in the case that I talked about where the guy did everything wrong, the other guy hadn't even heard his jitter yet. He was still charging towards the leader when this guy's breaking off in a very aggressive way. And I mean, in a positive light, despite the collision, despite the unconscious skydiver, despite an unconscious landing in the river just upstream of the dam, the guy lived. And that's why I feel comfortable showing the video, because an example of so many things going wrong, and then after the impact, so many things going right that, my wife happened to be driving out on road. She called man, I had a boat in the water like 90 seconds and got him before he went over the dam, which all is this crazy convergence of things. But there's very real consequences to not employing a progressive breakoff, especially in those higher speed, higher skill set angle jumps. But hopefully I touched on that. There should be a dictated breakoff on a jump that you're talking about, a high skill level angle jump. So hopefully your leader is a good one.
Yeah. All right. I think I have one more. So if you do get left behind in a skydive, or you are either super high above your group and you can't get down to them, or you're super below your group and you can't get up to them, and I'm not talking about movement jumps. I'm just talking about, whether it be an RW jump or Freefly jump or whatever. If you get really left behind and you get really far away from your group, when should you break off?
Well, number one, keep trying. Keep trying the whole time. The safest place that you can be is close to your group. You have a visual of them, especially a belly flyer, a lighter person who just can't get down to the jump. Keep trying. You know where they are, but they don't know where you are, probably. If they're on their belly and they're kind of focusing on what's happening and you're 1,000 feet high, they're probably not aware of where you are. But for sure, the safest place you can be is with your group. And then second, your breakoff is going to start when their breakoff starts, in my opinion. You're not going to stay in free fall when you're looking at other people starting to track away. You're also going to track away. Say you're arbitrarily 1,000 feet high, your breakoff procedure is the same. You turn 180 from the perceived center, trying not to go up or down jump run, make as much progress as you can. But then also I think that your pull altitude may be offset by 1,000 feet. You need to know that they don't know where you are. They may or may not be comfortable getting on their back to look for you. And so you need to be very altitude aware and probably pulling quite a bit higher than normal. That presents its own complications for sure. But hopefully you've tracked away from jump run. And so saddling in 500 or 1,000 feet high is not necessarily putting yourself or other people in danger.
Cool. I think those are all the questions I have. If anybody has any questions, type them in now. But yeah, I think that's
cool.
I think that's pretty much it.
I'm gonna go start training and start practicing my breakoff.
Woohoo! Keep practicing your breakoff.
Keep practicing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Tyler says thanks for all the knowledge and for putting this on.
You bet.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.